I rise to strongly urge the adoption of my Senate Bill 2284 to stop the Syrian refugee resettlement program unless and until we have complete and adequate safeguards in place for the security of our homeland and all of our states. Mr. President, it's very clear to me that we do not have those safeguards right now. And what my bill would do, Mr. President, is stop the program for 270 days, demand a thorough review of all security issues related to the program, demand that changes to that be made and brought before Congress, and that the program only continue with the consent of Congress after we are assured that the homeland and all of our states will be fully protected. Now, again, Mr. President, it's very clear to me that's not the case now. I expressed strong concerns and opposition to this program from the very beginning. From when I first learned of it in September, I wrote Secretaries Kerry and Johnson regarding the real dangers of taking in thousands upon thousands of refugees from a country and a state of the world where enemies of the United States are all around them. And clearly, it posed a danger of those terrorist enemies infiltrating the refugee resettlement process. Well, Mr. President, tragically, we saw that happen, and we saw the horrible results in Paris last Friday. As we all know now, at least one of those terrorists in Paris got into France under the Syrian refugee resettlement program there. And that is the same danger that's posed to us. Now, Mr. President, I've looked at this. I've had briefings on this. It is clear to me that we do not have adequate safeguards against this. Let me just give you one example of testimony in this regard. FBI Director James Comey has testified that the federal government doesn't have the ability to fully vet 10,000 or more Syrian refugees. Recently, during a House Committee on Homeland Security, a hearing, Mr. Comey stated, quote, "We can only query against which we have collected. And so if someone has never made a ripple in the pond in Syria in a way that would get their identity or their interests reflected in our database, we can query our database until the cows come home. But there will be nothing that shows up because we have no record of them," close quote. That puts in simple, straightforward terms the real danger, that we cannot properly vet all of these refugees. And this is not from any part of the world, any country. This is from a hotbed of anti-American terrorist elements. Now, Mr. President, there is an additional grave danger with the program as it stands now, and that is our complete inability to track these individuals once they're in our country. And unfortunately, Mr. President, I have an example of this right from my home state of Louisiana. Just last week, a Syrian refugee was resettled into Baton Rouge. As of today, he's no longer there. He's gone missing. Allegedly, he on his own is relocating to Washington, D.C. But from the briefings I've had from the state police, no one is in contact with him. No law enforcement or government agency is tracking him in any way. He may or may not check into a social service agency in Washington, D.C. They have his information. Apparently, they're not in contact with him. Now, this is within a week of his being resettled into where he was supposed to be in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, which I object to as a Louisianian. Again, he allegedly is coming to Washington, by the way, our nation's capital, under high security alert, and no one knows exactly where he is. No one is tracking him adequately at all. Again, this clearly underscores the inadequacy of our current program. Mr. President, we need to put a stop to this until proper, full, aggressive safeguards are in place. My bill, Senate Bill 2284, would do that. I'm very happy the House of Representatives is acting and considering similar legislation. I believe Congressman Graves there will be introducing my legislation in the House, and I believe the House may take up this matter as soon as Thursday. I hope that they do, because it's very time sensitive and our security is at stake. I hope that we do by considering this and similar ideas absolutely as soon as possible. We must put a stop to this, Mr. President. We must put real security measures in place, and we must not allow the flow to continue until we do. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the floor.